Do you want to be buried or cremated?
Oh, I'm going to be composted.
That's Martha Stewart.
And this is Positive Charge by GeekWire, sponsored by Amazon Sustainability.
I'm Laura Scott. I'm an independent audio producer and journalist.
And I'm Lisa Stifler. I'm a journalist at GeekWire covering sustainability, energy, sometimes biotech.
Positive Charge is a series about sustainability and climate solutions in the tech world. And this is possibly the most hopeful tech I think we've covered so far, Lisa, or that we even have on the calendar. And that's kind of weird because it's about death.
It is about death. We are going to talk about what you can do with your body that is green as possible at the end of life. And it involves a new technology that was just created and launched a few years ago and is spreading around the country.
This is human composting. There's some other names for human composting that might feel a little more palatable.
Yeah, maybe so. Human composting is very on the nose for what this is. People also call it, in legal documents, natural organic reduction, terramation, like cremation, but back to the earth.
Cute. I like that one.
Mm-hmm. And soil transformation, which just seems...
Where's the human in that? I think you could transform any soil.
Yeah, totally. And so what we're talking about today is an alternative to cremation, to traditional burials. It's taking a deceased person and putting them into a controlled environment, creating conditions where they can naturally decompose and be turned into soil. And this is kind of catching on.
Martha Stewart wants to be composted. She kind of broke the internet with this on a podcast called 50 Plus and Unfiltered, hosted by Sean Killinger. Martha actually knew about body composting because she composts her own horses.
When one of my horses dies, we dig a giant hole, really deep, in one of my fields. We have a pet cemetery. And the horse is wrapped in a clean white linen sheet and very carefully dropped down into this giant, lovely grave. I want to go there.
Which is so Martha Stewart. Who else has horses to compost?
I know, and I mean, she is the consummate gardener, so it all adds up. It makes sense. You know, technically what Martha is describing isn't exactly the same kind of composting that we're going to talk about today. That is more like a natural burial or green burial, but it's really the same idea with horses. Or Martha.
And that actually takes us right to Katrina Spade.
You could consider her the modern day inventor of human composting. And she started with horses too. She was a graduate student in Massachusetts studying architecture, and her area of focus was permaculture, which I didn't really understand how that fit in with architecture, but architecture is apparently more broad than just buildings. It's about how humans interact with the earth. So permaculture is all about living in harmony with the environment. And she was in particular interested in composting. And then she got a call that sent her on a very unexpected path.
My friend Kate called me on the telephone and she was like, "Oh, Katrina, have you heard about the practice that farmers use to compost whole cows?" And it was a bit of an epiphany moment. I don't think she was connecting it to human deaths. I think she was saying, like, you're doing composting stuff. Isn't that cool? But I immediately thought, well, clearly, biologically, you can compost a human if you can compost a cow. So that was early days and connected the ideas for me of composting mortalities and how we could potentially create a new way for humans for death care.
It kind of blew her mind. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, why are we just composting the livestock and, old apples? Like, we could compost people.
But what about cremation? Cremation feels like the most clean alternative. Oh, it's a smaller space. You can spread your ashes in nature.
Well, you can, but there are problems with that. Cremation has replaced burial as being the most popular end-of-life option in the U.S. But when you cremate a body, it does produce about 530 pounds of carbon dioxide. And I was trying to figure out a way to put that into some sort of perspective. So if you're driving an efficient car, like maybe an old Prius, that would create emissions about comparable to driving from Seattle to San Diego for your cremation.
I mean, even just the idea that what you end up with is soil feels like it's giving back to the earth.
Absolutely. And some people might think, well, you get to scatter the ashes, but this is sort of a weird twist. But it turns out that the ashes are very alkaline, which plants don't like. They like soil that's a little bit acidic or neutral. Alkaline is basic, and so it's not even good for that. And Katrina's idea was really, wouldn't it be great if your last gesture could be beneficial to the planet And that really set her on a course of thinking, how do we take this livestock practice and adapt it for humans? And so she wanted to know more. So she literally Googled how to compost a horse, and that surfaced a researcher named Lynn Carpenter Boggs, who happened to be at Washington State University, chair of the Department of Crop and Soil Sciences. And she'd made a video about this, about composting a pet horse. And it was very straightforward. It was wood chips, dead horse, and wood chips. And then you wait 2 years for nature to break down the body.
That's it? That's all you have to do?
That's all you have to do. It just, nature takes its course and deals with your horse.
It rhymes.
Yes. Yeah, and it just happened that not only did Lynn Carpenter Boggs know how to do this with sort of the random horse, she is actually a leading expert on mortality composting, which is the name of managing dead livestock. And she could do this at the scale of pets, individual pets, to university operations or maybe a small dairy, all the way up to being very involved with the bird flu, where there are all these contaminated, poor dead chickens that needed to be disposed of quickly, safely, and composting was the way to do it. But then they ran into a hitch. Information about that kind of spread around, that this woman was trying to figure out how to compost people, and that led her to Tanya Marsh, who turned out to be one of the most experts in funeral and cemetery law in the U.S. She teaches a course about this. She's written a book that's 3 inches thick on the law of cemetery and funerals. And she told her that this plan was totally illegal.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Wait, illegal how?
Well, because each state across the nation has their own rules for what you can do with the body at the end of life. And in Washington State, do you want to guess what your options are?
Burial or cremation?
Well, the third is that you can donate yourself to science.
Okay.
Those are the 3. And so composting was definitely not on the table for that. So not only did Katrina need to figure out the science of how to do this, she had to change the law to allow it. So in order to offer human composting as an end-of-life option for humans, she needed to change the law. And she realized that she really did not know how to do that. She was just like, I missed the video on that process. I'm kind of picturing Schoolhouse Rock,
Oh,
I'm just a
bill. Yeah, I'm only a bill.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to leave all this singing to you always in this episode.
It's good. I was in choir.
See, there we go. Perfection. I'm not going to sing it. And so she didn't know. Schoolhouse Rock was not there to help her. And so luckily enough, she was living in Seattle, and her neighbor happened to be a state senator, Jamie Peterson. She reached out to him to see, okay, what would be my first steps to make this happen? And by coincidence, he had been working to legalize something called alkaline hydrolysis, which is more obviously called water cremation. Like you put someone in a very, very basic solution and they dissolve. So Senator Peterson is like, yes, I love this. I've been trying to figure out this alkaline hydrolysis or water cremation, and he was all in. So she was working with him. His staff wrote the legislation. She started lobbying down in Olympia in Washington's capital.
You would have about 15 seconds to speak with a lawmaker. And I brought a bag of straw and wood chips and a small bag of straw and wood chips, a small bag of compost created from a cow from Washington State University. And I would say, this is the before and this is the after. And most lawmakers would say, well, is anyone doing this yet? Is anyone doing human composting? And I would say all over the country, we're composting horses and cows, but no one's done humans yet.
She won everybody over and was able to get this passed quickly. The law passed in 2019. It went into effect May 2020. And by December of 2020, Katrina opened her business called Recompose. It's based in Seattle. And it was the very first human composting business in the U.S.
And we actually got to visit Recompose, which I'll admit I was a little bit freaked out to do.
I was excited. Something might be wrong with me.
You knew it would be cool. It's in a more industrial district in South Seattle, SoDo.
Ironically, it's across the street from the place that recycles like your cans and
Yeah.
bottles and newspapers.
I wasn't sure I even wanted to mention that because I was like, oh, all the recycling trucks are pulling in across the street in like a big line.
I love the symmetry of it.
No, I will say that when I pulled up to the building, I immediately felt less intimidated. They've painted murals on the walls, so it doesn't feel quite as concrete and industrial. They have a little garden out front. And when you walk in, it's all shades of green, some pictures of trees on the wall, dark wood. It feels calm. There's a couple of sort of sitting rooms immediately with boxes of tissues and books for children and adults about mushrooms. And
I love the one on mushrooms.
Yeah, that was cute,
this is
right?
my people, yeah.
Yeah. And it just felt like a very cozy space. It didn't feel intimidating at all.
Yeah. And there's one room specifically dedicated for sitting with the deceased, where a body is wrapped in a natural linen shroud. And people, families, and loved ones are invited to spend the time they need to with that person. And then they move into the gathering space.
This felt like a church almost. It's a tall white room filled with light. There's these beautiful green stained glass windows that kind of shine. It almost feels like you're in a sun-dappled forest when you enter.
In terms of the design, we're reminding people wherever we can about the natural world, about the connection, about what their person is about to undergo.
There's chairs and a little altar podium area at the front, and you could absolutely have a lovely memorial service in that space. And most interestingly, there's this huge portal kind of built into the side of the wall. And that portal connects this memorial space to the behind the scenes area where the composting happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a submarine door. I thought
Yeah.
about it. They very intentionally have that connection. And so the windows that you're speaking about, the light's coming in from the room where the composting happens. So it's kind of allowing you to feel connected to that part of the process without like having to directly confront it.
Yes.
It seems like it's like not, it acknowledges that's what's happening next, but it not in a way that kind of makes you anxious.
Exactly. They're not hiding anything. To be composted at Recompose, you're put into a vessel. And it's something that you can do at the memorial service kind of as a ceremonial act, is push that vessel through this portal into the industrial space where the composting happens. And once you get in there, it is an industrial space. There's a cement floor, but there's also this beautiful honeycomb structure where all of the vessels sort of float above each other, suspended up to the ceiling. And that's where the composting happens.
You can see where her architectural background comes into play because it's a very elegant, it's very clean and elegant.
And intentionally designed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They call it the greenhouse.
Should we go in the greenhouse? Yeah, okay, let's do it.
Okay.
I do like to let people know that it might smell like compost in here.
Okay.
Straw forward, maybe. We'll see what it is today, but I like to let folks know.
Okay, when she said that, I was really bracing myself for something crazy, but it really smells like soil or manure. It smells like what you would think compost would smell like.
Yeah, she describes it as kind of like a feed store, which I haven't spent very much time in a feed store.
I can't say I have either.
but,
Yeah.
But it just has sort of that kind of toasty straw smell. Like maybe I'd picture a clean barn smelling like,
Yeah.
maybe something like, but a very clean barn. There's no stink to it. It smells nice and earthy.
I mean, when I started the work early days, one of my big concerns was, would it smell bad? And so we actually worked, a good compost process, a good composting system, if the microbes are working actively, it should smell pretty good. We have control of everything, the input. It's one person's body of varying sizes, but still it's one person's body. And then it's wood chips, alfalfa, and straw. We know exactly what we're placing in that vessel. So there's not as much opportunity for things to go a little awry. This is the straw that we use to compost a body. So the vessel is made of stainless steel. It's 8 feet long and 4 feet in diameter. It's doing a couple of things. It's holding the person's body and these plant materials. It is providing oxygen to the microbes via a basic fan system. So we do have air being pushed into the vessel and pulled out of the vessels. We're taking the temperature of the material inside. We have 2 temperature probes in each vessel, and they're telling our team on a 5-minute readout what the temperature is. We place the body in the vessel and cover it with more of this plant material, and then microbes get to work. Microbes that are naturally occurring, they're on us as we speak, they're in this room, they're on these wood chips, break the body down, and typically what we see at Recompose is about 6 to 12 hours later, the temperature in the vessel is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. We're not adding heat. All we're doing is creating the perfect environment for that microbial activity. The microbes exist naturally on us and in the air, and they get to work breaking everything organic down. It's cool. It's really cool. Now, by law, the temperatures need to stay sustained above 131 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 days consecutively. That's directly from guidelines of livestock composting. So Dr. Carpenter-Boggs was part of the research that found that's the number where harmful pathogens are destroyed. So we need to see 3 days or more above 131, which is nice and toasty. We usually see 9 days, 12 days here, because we've really refined this recipe of plant materials over the years to just be exactly what the microbes want.
I was so surprised that they didn't have to add anything to this mixture, that all of the microbes that you need for the composting process are on the body, the straw, the wood chips, and the alfalfa.
Yeah, but I mean, even like if you've ever like mowed a lawn and had a big pile of like grass clippings, they get really hot.
Oh, yeah,
Because
that's
things
true.
are breaking down. So it's similar to that. That's what's happening in there.
See, that's why I think this is really cool, because if you can kind of zoom out from it being people,
Yeah,
it's really science.
It is.
So the person's body and the plant material break down over about 1 month's time inside the vessel. Then our team removes the soil, removes bone, removes non-organics like a titanium hip, say, and we screen for those things. We break the bone down using a mechanical process that we've designed, and then we recycle the non-organics. The reduced bone, kind of like sand at that point, like a rocky beach, gets reincorporated with the soil. And then for the next month or so, it cures, which is a composting term, right? Curing, we're providing some oxygen, but not doing a whole lot else at that point. Curing is where the microbial activity continues to slow, the compost dries out, and by the end of curing, it's ready to give back to family or friends or donate it. So the whole process is about 2 months.
So again, Katrina, she figured out you can do this with cows. She figured out how to change the law. She opened her own business to do this, and now others have joined as well. The other 2 larger companies in the U.S. are called Return Home and Earth Funeral, and they are both in the Seattle area. And now at this point, there are 14 states that will allow people to go through terramation or human composting. They're mostly on the West Coast and the Northeast. 15 additional states are considering legislation for this. Texas, Florida, states in the Midwest. It's much more palatable than maybe people would think at first blush.
We have California, we have New York, New Jersey. I mean, I can go through them all. Georgia, Oregon.
Micah Truman is the founder and CEO of Return Home.
I think we're already at about 45% of America. The interesting thing we found is I really thought that it was going to be a red versus blue type divide. It's not. So it will absolutely pass any legislature. It just is a matter of how the bill is phrased. So if you're going through a fairly red state and you phrase it as environmental, you're probably going to hit some headwind. If it's couched as a matter of freedom and personal choice, it's just fine.
So Return Home is following a pretty similar strategy. It's also alfalfa, straw. They use sawdust. Their vessel is different, a little more utilitarian perhaps. So Micah himself described the vessel kind of like a big freezer chest. It's beige, it's about 8 feet long, 3.5 feet wide and high. They don't rotate their chests. The process just happens with the body and the different materials in there. And like Katrina, he was originally really interested in this as a climate issue, looking at the carbon emissions. But he's realized that interest in this goes way beyond those motivations for people who sign up for this service.
There's a variety of reasons, and it's really interesting. In the beginning, I really thought that this was going to be for the Subaru driving urban Seattle dwellers. And they certainly exist, my mother. But we get as many people from Ruby Red, Eastern Washington, as we do from Seattle or Bellevue. And so the reasons, right? So you've got your classic. You have, it's environmental, I care deeply, I'm a gardener, that sort of thing. What's really interesting is we find that, for example, farmers know soil far better than the urban, Subaru drivers. And they want to go back to their farm under the crabapple tree their grandfather planted 100 years ago. Hunters, they really want the land to be there so that they can do what they do. So I think we really narrowly defined, maybe I narrowly defined what an environmentalist is. So for very different reasons. But yeah, those kind of do. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the third, I totally forgot. The third, and just as big, is I don't want to be buried and I don't want to be cremated. I'm a claustrophobe, but I don't want to be lit on fire. What do you got?
What if you were, I always have this horrible intrusive thought of what if you were still alive when you got cremated? I know that that's not really a thing with modern science, but it's just this weird anxiety I have about how that would be the worst way to go. And even if I wasn't alive, I don't like the idea of that happening to my body. You're
not alone, because Micah said that people are just scared of what happens to them.
One of the most common questions we get is, I remember this as a kid too. If I'm in the vessel, I'm afraid I'm still alive. But if I go into a crematory, there's no chance. And our answer is, if you're still alive, just knock on the side of that vessel. We got you. I've had people cry after saying that because they're scared.
Really?
Heck yeah.
Another interesting component of this is that it makes quite a bit of material for gardening with, or for planting, or whatever you want to do with it. So Recompose, they make about 20 to 30 bags of, it's kind of like a beauty bark, because they're using wood chips. So it's kind of more like a mulch or a beauty bark. And then the families, the loved ones, can take some of it, all of it, whatever they'd like. And both Recompose and Return Home have partnerships with other organizations that will take this to put on land for different restoration sorts of projects or other conservation applications like that.
Yeah, I was beyond impressed by how much soil is produced from this process. At Return Home, it's 250 pounds of compost per person.
Yeah, and Micah said that most families, 70%, take all of it home with them.
So we always make a huggable bag because it was really hard, right? You give a 20-pound bag to a 70-year-old lady and she'd be hugging it. And, you're like, all right, let's give her a 1-pound bag. So we always have a 1-pound bag and the rest. Each bag is individually tagged, person's name, birth and death years on each bag.
There's actually one more demographic that's really interested in this that completely shocked both of us. I just did not expect this.
Yeah, both Micah and Katrina had mentioned that younger people are really interested in this and really liking this as an alternative for environmental reasons and other reasons as well. And I spoke to one of them. Her name is Alyssa Tapero, and she is what Recompose calls a pre-compose customer.
It's funny to me that people would sign up for this in advance, so far in advance.
Yeah, she's an interesting case. One, we can start with her job.
She's actually a tsunami program manager, and she lives in Gig Harbor in Washington.
Basically, my job is to think about kind of really the absolute worst case natural hazard disaster that could happen here in Washington, which is a local, big earthquake and tsunami. And so I like to call our team the kind of doom and gloom team, because we're always talking about these very, low frequency, but very high impact, high fatality events.
Yeah. So she, just by the nature of her career, is thinking about end of life.
Disaster prep almost, or worst case scenario.
Exactly.
Like, she's the kind of person who feels primed to be really thinking far ahead.
She is in planning for those futures. And she also had a situation, her father died when she was 18, and rather suddenly. And so she has really thought a lot about how you plan for the end of your life. And her wife also had her father die when she was young. And so the both of them have signed up for the pre-compose program at Recompose. It costs about $7,000 and they just pay on installments. They pay, well, I don't know what the payment plan is for Alyssa's wife, but she's paying $100 a month until this is all paid off, and then it's ready. And she is someone who is really keyed into the environmental impacts of the alternative routes for what happens to your body when you pass.
When I learned how much of an environmental impact there is from cremation, and how expensive some of those things are, and just kind of the entire approach by the funeral industry, I knew that wasn't something I wanted for me. Everybody has kind of their own preference, but I don't really feel like I need my body once I'm done with it. So I don't feel like it needs to be in a coffin, or even that I necessarily need my ashes to be somewhere. But that environmental impact, the moment I learned about that, I was like, oh boy, yeah, I want to do something different.
You might wonder, how does composting compare in terms of its sustainability? I found a great article in Smithsonian that I'll include in our show notes, and it looks at the different ways that bodies are managed after life. So if you start with traditional burials, there's the issue of the land use. So cemeteries cover an estimated 2 million acres in the U.S. That's a little bit less than Yellowstone National Park.
Whoa.
I know. It's about 3 times the size of Rhode Island, whether you're East Coast, West Coast. And the deceased are often embalmed with hazardous chemicals. They're buried in chemically treated or metal caskets, maybe placed in a concrete vault. And also notable is that American cemeteries are typically permanent burials. So that means the land cannot be reused. Apparently in other places, there's a certain time that passes and you can have bones removed and the plot reused. But that's not the case here. So we would need to keep expanding the footprint of cemeteries to accommodate everyone. And then if you look at cremation, you mostly have the impacts from the carbon emissions. And then there are also gases and pollutants that are released that are hazardous. So composting really kind of adds up as pretty darn green.
It actually didn't surprise me that much that younger people were interested in this, because after learning about this process, I'm very interested in this. And Alyssa and I are the same age. Alyssa's a millennial. She's in her 30s. I like to pretend that I'm Gen Z. Sometimes I'm right on the cusp, Lisa. But both Micah and Katrina said that younger people are more open and interested in this option. It's a really strong demographic. Yeah, would you consider doing this?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would love this. I had wanted to do this for my dad a couple of years ago when he passed, but we were already on that traditional path of cremation, and it just followed that course and I couldn't interrupt it. And do you recall, I got teary being at the space at Recompose, because I could have imagined how comforting that experience would have been.
Actually, my great uncle went through this process last summer. We used Earth Funeral.
Oh, wow.
He was so excited about it, obviously before he was composted, almost to the point where we were all as a family like, can you please stop talking about this? Like, we know that you're sick and you're dying, but we don't really want to think about that yet. We want to try everything we can to make you better. But he was so excited. He called this his next adventure. The thing that he hadn't tried yet. He'd done so much on Earth and lived such a full and amazing life. And he was really looking forward to it. And yeah, kept trying to share information about the process with us kind of against our will. So it was nice to dig into it in a slightly more removed space for me on this episode, and understand what happened to him and what he chose to do with his body. And it's so lovely. So his husband, who survived him, my great uncle, he is a huge gardener, and they both love being in the outdoors. They love camping. They've had so many amazing trips all across the U.S. in their camper van. And the idea of my great uncle Mark being soil, being able to return and stay in these natural, beautiful places that they loved, and also in their garden. Oh, I'm getting emotional. I'm so sorry, Lisa. It's just really beautiful. And we actually spread some of Mark's soil about 2 weeks ago at a family reunion in the garden. And it was a really beautiful, small family ceremony that meant a lot to me. I would love to have this be something that most people do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things when we think about being hopeful about these different technologies that we're covering in positive charge. This one is, it's less crazily scientific the way fusion is. There's still tons of science and engineering that has to happen to make this work in a way that is appropriate and scalable, honestly. But what's really exciting is kind of your point is like, maybe this could become the predominant way that people pass to the next, well, they're not
the next
not
phase.
Dying, but their next adventure could be compost. And I love that idea. And that is one of the things that makes me really hopeful about this approach to end of life, where I also think it can ground people as maybe they're contemplating their own mortality and thinking about the earth, and kind of maybe that shades other things that they're doing in life, where it's not just thinking about what happens to your body, but like, how am I leaving the planet? Maybe it brings that question to the forefront of their minds, which is something that it would be good if more people thought about, like, how am I leaving this earth? And so this is a way to enter into that conversation or that thought process, perhaps.
Yeah, I really like that. Oh, sorry, I cried.
Yeah,
I didn't expect to
and
cry.
it made me start to.
I know, I saw you getting teared up, and I was like, okay, at least we're on the same page.
Oh no,
It's heavy stuff.
It is heavy stuff.
Let's give Katrina Spade the last word, because she did invent this entire process that this whole industry has been born out of.
I can't really solve everything. And in fact, Recompose and human composting can't even solve climate change. There's many other things that need to happen. This is such a small piece of the puzzle. But if we can truly and meaningfully change the funeral industry, the way we care for our bodies, and then in addition to that, somehow connect humans even more to the fact that we're part of that ecosystem, we're part of the natural world, then that would be hugely satisfying.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Positive Charge by GeekWire. And thank you to our sponsor, Amazon Sustainability. In the next episode, we're doing something really exciting. We are going to Pacific Northwest Climate Week, and we're bringing you with us. Lisa, do you want to tell everybody a little bit more about it?
Yeah, for sure. So this is an annual event with tons of panels and meetups, even climate karaoke. We know that you like to sing. And it runs across cities in Washington, Oregon, BC. We're going to take you to the kickoff happy hour up on a rooftop in downtown Seattle. We will be talking to all kinds of investors and other movers and shakers in this space to get their hot takes on what is overhyped, underhyped, what new innovations you should be paying attention to.
It'll be great, and we're so excited that you get to come with us. If you liked this episode, can you do the thing where you say that you like it and give us a review, or 5 or 4 stars even? I'll take 4 stars. We would love and appreciate that so much. Feel free to subscribe or follow along to come back with us to go to Climate Week. And thank you for listening.